So I'm going through and getting my bike ready for the riding season. We're just coming out of winter, and I started up and get it running, and it's weeping out of this. I've got a coolant leak out of the front cylinder pipe, and this is a pretty common issue. I had it happen on my Vulcan 900. There's a video that I put up of fixing that. So I pressure tested the system, and we're up to 15 psi. Actually, we're up to about, a little bit more than 15 psi. You're supposed to do a max of 18, and it's supposed to hold that for at least 6 seconds to know that you don't have a leak. But it's been sitting like this for a good 5 minutes now, and not even so much as a drip out of that. I've wiggled it, I've messed with it just to see if I could get it to leak again, and it's not. So alright, there we go. I'm not losing my mind. It is actually leaking a little bit, but only when it's up to full pressure. So I'm going to go ahead and replace this O-ring and do a few other things to the cooling system while I'm at it. You want to go through and test it as much as possible to make sure that there's no leaks. I showed you guys how to do the pressure test on the system where you did it up top. Now I'm going to show you a different way of testing your radiator cap. Your radiator cap is very important because what it does is it keeps pressure in the radiator or in the cooling system, so that the higher the psi pressure in there, the higher the boiling point of water. So it's got to be at a certain psi, but if it's too much, it'll blow seals. So what that radiator cap does is it releases pressure. But if it's not working properly, like in my case, it wasn't sealing properly, so it would boil at a lower temperature. If things got hot, it could cause a problem. And so I'll show you what I'm talking about. Over here I just have just a regular old Harbor Freight special radiator testing pressurizer. And the thing with this is it comes with several different kinds of these where you can hook it up to different automotive applications, but sometimes it doesn't fit perfectly. And when you're testing radiator systems, you need a tight fit in order for it to seal properly and give you accurate results. I bought this off of eBay, and I had to sort of make it work, but it still wasn't sealing properly. So what I had to do is I had to use the original housing. Sometimes you can do that on motorcycles. It just depends on how it's all set up. But I adapted some hose to make it fit properly, and then I'm going to just snug this into here, and to get accurate results and show you how to see where the air is escaping from, because if this isn't perfect, it's going to seep from here, and it's not. I've tested it already, and there's some air bubbles that come out of here, and it's just because I can't get a tight enough fit on it. But as long as this is sealing properly, and I'll show you how to see that. I have an old radiator cap here. I'll show you the problem with it, and I have the new radiator cap, and I'll show you how it works properly. So I have the old cap installed on the radiator housing, and I'm going to just show you how bad it is. It's supposed to hold 1.1 bar, which is 16 psi, and as you can see, it's not holding anything. So I'm going to put the new cap on. And you can see that it holds 16. If it gets above 16, it bleeds it off and then starts lowering. Now, if it's dropping pretty fast and you're not quite sure if it's sealing completely, you can use the water bucket test and immerse this into a bucket of water and watch where the air bubbles escape. If it's escaping out of here, you know that it's your fitting and not your cap. But if it's escaping out of the lid, you know that that seal's blown in there, like this one is. Just old and worn out and just needs to be replaced. But I'll go ahead and drop it in a bucket of water and show you how it works. I have the old cap on there and place it in there and let it rest for a minute so all the air pops out of there. And it's a little cloudy in there, but you should be able to see where the bubbles are coming from. As you can see, it's coming straight out of the relief. And so, that's the old one and it's completely blown. The seals are done for. Here's the new cap. And all those bubbles go away. And then start pumping it up. Okay, we are there. Let's go a little bit further. There it goes, popping it down. And the only air that's coming out is from the relief. But it takes till it gets 16 psi to do it. So that one's good and it's holding. So that's how you test that. So now that we have all of our components working properly, we'll go ahead and make our repair on the O-rings and then put it back together, and it should be well operating. If it does have a thermostat in it and nobody took it out, you could test it. And what you do is you get a pot of boiling water or close to it. It doesn't necessarily need to be boiling, but you would put it in there, maybe even put a piece of wood at the bottom to hold this in place, and then you would get a thermometer and you would get a reading of when this plate would open and close, and you would compare it to the specs in the user manual or the service manual, and you could tell whether it was operating properly or not. So I've already got a new one, so I'm just going to slap the new one in.